Welcome to Land Speed Legends, a podcast talking to the men, the women, the legends that make land speed racing great. Discover the stories of these ordinary people whose passion for land speed racing has made them legendary. And now, here's your host, the Bonneville Belle, the High Boy Honey, the Salt Princess, Allison Volk-Dean.
Welcome to another episode of Land Speed Legends. Here today is the legendary Scott Horner. Scott is originally from New Jersey, but was exposed to land speed racing through pictures and stories in books about the Spirt of America, the Blue Flame, the Green Monster, and other land speed legends. This sparked a desire for land speed racing in Scott that would have to wait 4 decades before it was realized. In the meantime, his need for speed was satisfied by having a successful run at drag racing motorcycles. His service in the Air Force brings him out west, where in 1996 he opened up his own performance shop, Heads Up Performance. Through his shop, he gets connected to land speed racing community, and his destiny with land speed racing begins. In 2007, Scott fulfilled a childhood dream and joined both the Mirage and Bonneville 200 mile per hour club. Scott eventually went on to join 5 other 200 mile per hour clubs. Heads up, this is going to be as thrilling as a high-speed tank slapper. Thank you, Scott, for being here, coming through snow, digging your way out of a snowstorm to get here.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you, Allison.
Yes.
Appreciate you doing this.
Oh, I know.
For the whole land speed community.
Yeah, yes, and I want to say, your story is kind of like, I'm like, this is why I do this, because you got in the club. I was office manager of the Bonneville 200 mile an hour club. And, I took your picture and give you your hat and give you your book. Every year you come in and pay your dues. But I had no clue about the depth of your story. And you're kind of a badass. Like what you've done is kind of amazing. And you're a super humble guy. So you would never say that. But so it's so interesting to learn, the people that I don't know as well. I know you and like, hey, Scott, but know as well and their story, and to hear how amazing they are. And it just reaffirms why I'm doing this. So I appreciate it. And, but yeah, let's get into it. I want to talk to you about, you told me this really cute story about how you got into, how you were introduced to land speed racing.
Right. It was 3rd grade. Good old Miss Quayle's class there at Prim Elementary, doing the scholastic books. And for whatever reason, I was drawn to the I guess what now we call the absolute land speed record stuff. But it was at, the heyday of it in the 60s there with the Spirt of America, Blue Flame and everything. And, you check the little box, send the paper away, a month later, whatever, 2 months, you get the book. And I remember seeing the 200 mile an hour club ring and go, man, that's a really cool thing. And, I guess I probably said I want to get one of those or whatever. And as I came out west, I doing the racing, and I run into people that did things, here at Bonneville. And it just was like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to go fast. And then I just kind of said, if I ever get out to Bonneville or, get out to Utah or anywhere near the Salt Flats, I'm going to go. And my brother, Gary, moved up to Jeremy Ranch outside of Park City. And I came up to visit him. And I said, dude, let's go to Bonneville. And he's like, yeah, all right. And we had no idea. And we got about halfway there, and there was a gas station, and we stopped. We said, how much further is Bonneville? This was before the GPS and all that. And it's like, like another 45 minutes. We're like, oh my God, But, we went out there, and I was like totally blown away. And it was right after, it would have been probably World of Speed, because I think it was September, maybe October, could have been World Final. Anyway, but you could see where the track was, and driving around, I'm like, man, I so it was like step 1.
Yeah.
And then it was like, all right.
So there wasn't even a race. It was just, you were going out
we went out, and we went out like around the mountain. We did stuff like right now. I mean, I wouldn't do like 10% of what we did. We drove places that, man, I'm surprised I'm still here, I guess.
You're lucky you got out.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, that could be dangerous, for sure, especially if it starts getting dark. Right. I don't think people that are new out there realize what they're getting into sometimes.
No, exactly. No, and that's the cool part was that I was in motorsports, had the my business, and and I kept thinking about it, and it wasn't because of the world's fastest Indian, but that came out when I already had like I'm going to do something about this, because it was '05, and I had someone come to the shop and I helped them with their bike, and said, man, I really want to, we were dynoing it. This is something I really always wanted to do, and hey, why don't you just come out? You can ride my bike. And this bike had been 240 plus miles an hour. Got in a 2 Club with it and everything. I'm like, well, yeah, I'll do that. That'll satisfy you. And then, things happened, whatever. And I said, you know what? I have a Hayabusa. I build Hayabusas. I have my own turbo systems. I do all this. Like, why do I have to ride someone else's bike?
Yeah. Well, prior to that, though, you were drag racing, right?
So, yeah.
Let's.
Okay.
I want to talk about your drag racing just a little bit before we get into your land speed racing.
So that was, I started actually on my XL600. So my, a dual sport bike that I bought when I was a senior in high school. And, ran 13.8 at 92.72. I remember that at Sacramento when I had it with me when I was in the Air Force. And when I came back, I was in Turkey. When I came back stateside, I said, hey, I'm going to get, like the badass thing at the time, which was
serious about this.
Was a Suzuki GS 1150. Got that, started racing in Vegas is where I was at that point. And, started doing well. And the local shop picked me up, kind of sponsored me, and they threw a guy at me to do, install, because I just, it was my street bike, but I kept adding little things for drag racing, and things were going wrong, and come to find out that even though he's an older guy, he I don't know what he was selling, probably insurance, 2 weeks before that. Now he's the mechanic, and he was screwing stuff up, and I'm like, listen, I can screw stuff up too, then, and because I literally was, I had motorcycles as a kid, and then I had, my dual sport, that XL600. And then I bought, but this thing's a, inline 4 big, and I was afraid to change the oil literally when I first got it. And, but then after, starting to do a little racing, and then like I said, this guy's screwing stuff up, and then I'm trying to fix it while I'm at the track. And I said, screw it. I'm just going to, do it myself. And then I started doing well, and, hey, who's doing your stuff? And I'm like, I am. It's like, well, you want to do mine, And so I started doing things out of my garage and became the GS guy in Vegas. So if you had a GS 1100, GS 1150, you needed stuff done. The word, again, before all the internet and all that kind of stuff like that, it just word of mouth. Come find this guy, and I had parts and pieces, and it was in the business actually. I kind of had this. There's a thing called. The Recycler out of Southern California, and it's like a classified deals, and they have multiple ones all around. So my deal was you could get, when they finally got them in Vegas, you could go down to the Vegas office and get the recycler for all these locations, and basically covering Southern California. And I would find the GS 1100s and 1150s that had gone long, like people hadn't filed like a non-op permit with the DMV, and whoever buys that vehicle is responsible for past registration. So now you have like a $2,000 motorcycle that has $2,000 or more of back registration. So no one wanted to buy them in California, but I was out of Vegas. So I'd go down there, I'd buy the bikes basically just for the engine, and I was selling the engine to pro stock motorcycle or big time racers and things like that. And I'm like, this is my gig. This is what I was going to do. And I was doing this out of my house. And I said, well, I'm going to sacrifice everything. I basically moved out of my house into the shop, and, got a shop, moved into the shop, and over time, whatever, ultimately it was, Tom Bush, Kurt and Kyle Bush's father, was my Mac tool man. Wow. And he's like, he got transferred, or I got transferred to him. He got transferred to me, whatever. He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing these things. He said, you build motors for the dwarf cars and legend cars? I said, no, just Suzuki GS 1100, 1150. He's like, they're all the same. And I said, no, they're different. They're plain bearing and stuff. Anyway, so he a couple weeks later, he sends a guy to me. And, so I started doing engines, and I credit Tom to this day of pushing me, and, after I did a few engines and they did pretty well, I started doing their stuff, and Tom was racing at the time, and he actually ended up breaking his neck. Oh. He was fine, but that, I don't know if he raced much after that part, but
And so, and are you racing at this time too, or you're done racing?
That was
drag racing.
I was pretty much done at that point. Pretty much once I started working with the business,
that took over.
That kind of took over and went away.
But it sounded like you had a pretty successful, career at drag racing. What you've done, you kind of, had some success at the.
Yeah, we did. The cool part was I wrote for some publications and supplied some stuff to National Dragster, NHRA's publication, and ultimately that's how I got to Japan. So I decided to build I got a bike almost done, a small tire drag bike. And I said, you know what, this really isn't what I want to do. This was 1992. And I said, I'm going to build, car tire drag bike, badass thing. And ultimately that's how I met Kent Riches from Airtech. And he used my bike to build the bodywork that there's still, some people are still running, but it was the GSXR stuff that Angel and, Matt Hines and all those guys were using. And I wrote an article, about all that and stuff. But anyway, I decided to build that. And when I was doing all the writing and NHRA, guy that was like a motorcycle liaison contacted me, said, hey man, you do all, you're in the community. Do you know anybody who has a pro stock motorcycle? We need to fill a spot to go to Japan.
You're on.
I said, well, what do you need? And he said, we just need a pro. I'm like, well, I got, this. And he's like, all right, well, do you want to go to Japan? I'm like, yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. So I went, and so, and this bike was pro stock legal, but at least wheelbase and things like that. But the cool part, so I went and it was Byron Hines. It was his last race with the Yamaha. It went with Shirley Muldowney and, Greg Underdahl, Rick Ward and stuff. It was a really cool trip. And then I ended up going back again. That was like November of 93, went back in like May of 94. But ultimately, I guess the coolest thing about all that, it was when I tried to run Denver that year, and it didn't work out. Maybe we went there and did all this stuff, but I ended up running at the World Finals in '94 in Pomona.
Oh yeah,
and
cool.
It was just. Like I said, you need to be for pro stock motorcycle. You need to be a jockey. I'm a horse, right? But it was really cool. I had all these people come together and make stuff happen. Motor came out of Texas. The guy, I was getting divorced at the time. I had I had no money, and a buddy of mine that worked for the Hilton there in Vegas got his rooms. The guy in Texas said, "I'll let you borrow my motor, but I need to be there." My best friend John Brady back in New Jersey bought the ticket for him. That one of the publications I was writing for paid my entry. Then he drove from Phoenix up to Vegas with towed a borrowed trailer to Pomona. It was just
the alignment of the stars.
It was awesome to make, and it was really cool just to and I thought that was it. So I guess in tying to Land Speed, I was like, I always wanted to do something big, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, Olympics and do something like bobsled or something back, because I'm not like, an athlete, right? But, I just remember sitting at the last qualifying session and looking down the track and they have at the time it was Winston Vision, but the big TV, screens, and it's a top end camera looking directly at me. So I'm basically looking at me on the screen, and I look and I remember the attendance, not saying everyone was in the stands, but attendance was 42,000 if I remember. But anyway, there was a lot of people in the stands. And I just remember just before I pushed in the staging beams looking, going, if I could bottle this, right?
Oh yeah.
I'd never leave the house. It was just, but I go, that was it. That was,
you thought
that's my, like the biggest thing I'm ever going to do in my lifetime. And, which I would have been fine with, but thankfully I was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is kind of like the end of the drag racing, your drag racing.
Yeah. And that was, I did that and I still played around, but before that I was doing like the local track stuff and was doing all right. But then that was that was the only, professional race that I raced in.
That's pretty awesome, though.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And then the coolest part about that really was that when because I knew Byron Hines from going to Japan with him, but I entered and they called the director of competition Linwood Dupuy. He was a Louisiana guy, but he said, "Who are you and why do you think you can just show up at the World Finals?" And I said, "Well, this is my bike's ready. I got back from Japan. This is like And he said, "Well, who do you know? Used to Japan. Who do you know?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I went to Japan with Byron and Rick Warren." And he's like, "All right, whatever," and hung up. I was like, "Oh, here, I think I'm doing, I'm making the biggest thing I'm ever going to do in my life, right?"
From here to here.
And then and I'm like, and then like 2 days later, I get a call back, and Linwood said that Byron and I thank Byron for this. He said that Byron said that NHRA would be making a mistake if they didn't let me run.
Oh, wow. Cool.
He said, I can't, vouch for his power plant. I don't know he's doing that. But as far as like the bike and the presentation and, how I handle myself and everything, he said, so, I mean, that was,
quite a 180.
That was, And so I felt like I really had to, So we did, it was, like I said, it was a great thing. And that was, the end of that. And I thought, like you said, that was as far as I was going to be able to do anything.
Yeah. But it opens up this opportunity for you to start your performance shop, really.
So, like shortly thereafter.
You're in Vegas at this time?
In Vegas, yes.
Yeah. And so you're living in Vegas. And so shortly after that, you open up Heads Up Performance.
So that was 94. I was working for a private investigator. I did that for several years.
We need to have a side conversation about this.
Well, if you're going to be a private investigator, and it's funny because it's life as you know it, right? So it's not like. But again, looking back, going, wait a minute, like I've been doing private investigative stuff in Vegas. I mean, of all places.
Oh my gosh, it'd be amazing.
It was some crazy stuff, but
I need to hear some stories about that later.
But anyway, so I was doing that and the motorcycle things. And then ultimately, I got a job with Steve Wynn in one of his companies, and basically once helped them when we built the Bellagio. And my job was basically a short-term thing till we built the Bellagio. And they said, because you're helping us, you can kind of choose what you want to do. So I said, well, I want to be bellman at the Mirage. And that was my safety net for opening the business because I was an extra board kind of guy, right? And but I just knew that like every time they call me, say, hey, can you work Thursday? And you have to say yes because otherwise they won't call you. And they call and like, can you work Thursday? Like this would be Monday, and I dreaded it from Monday until Thursday. Once I was there, it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed the job, but it made me realize that what I was doing with my business was what I needed to be doing.
That's where your heart was.
Yeah. Because it wasn't work at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I was just too stupid to realize that it wasn't work. But it made me, it was no doubt that that's really what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. And so you start this up and it sounds like it's pretty successful.
And it progressed. Like I said, I was almost going to be almost like a salvage thing and doing the GS motors and the drag racing. And then Tom Bush, gave me that, well, he didn't give me a push. He started sending me people. And then, then I built their engines for, Kurt was, I think, a sophomore at the time. And, Kyle was 12 or whatever. And, doing and of course, I mean, you could put a lawnmower motor and they would have made it look good. And so that helped. Although, again, I'm not out there
so they were
screaming
racing your engines then.
Yeah.
Cool.
Both in Legend and Dwarf cars.
Cool.
Yeah. And it was fun. I mean, and the way, really what Tom also did was structured things and told me like how because he raced. They, where other guys would call me, hey, can you do a valve adjustment on my Legend car? Oh, when are you racing? Well, tonight, kind of thing. And Tom would be, hey, can you get me the motor by Wednesday? And I'm like, Wednesday? I didn't know you guys are racing this week. Well, we're not. We're racing next week. But if I don't have the motor this Wednesday, then don't worry about it. Because I mean, they're that, when they came back, they unloaded stuff. The cars went on jack stands. They had the punch list already on the window. I mean, and that's why I think the kids obviously were successful as well, because because of the discipline that Tom, and of course that trickled down to me. And what I always loved, he knew I was a single guy, and he did every night. So his mom had a house behind his house, And every night the whole family ate together. And he would say, we bring that motor at 6:00, and of course that's dinner time, And then I was like, I was always like embarrassed and stuff, and I'm like, he would tell me another time, say, well, I can't come over, that. He's like, all right, well then just, just show up before dinner, show up at like 5. So he would change dinner until 5:00. Just,
Oh,
it was cool
sweet.
stuff.
He sounds like a really neat guy.
Yeah. He's dry as dry can be, but, but he was very instrumental in pushing me and, maybe not pushing me, kicking me in the right direction who knows where I would have gone. I mean, probably most of this would not have happened without that,
Yeah.
my push. So that, like I said, I owe him a huge debt of gratitude.
That's awesome. Yeah, you get these people in your life that kind of, push you one way or the other, and you listened as part of the good thing too. You listened to what he had to say. So this Heads Up Racing, you are Heads Up Performance. I said Heads Up Racing. You start to kind of get introduced into the land speed racing community through this.
Yeah. So that was again, I dynoed, a guy came back through after, I think, Speed Week or whatever, had some issues, said, hey, could you dyno? And I did. And then again, that's the progression where he said you could ride the bike, and actually went and had leathers made. It was the first year they made you wear no perforations. So I went and had leathers made, and then, he had some issues and, wasn't racing anymore. And that's again where I also know, like, well, literally I have everything sitting in the shop to go racing.
This is where I can do this on my own.
And so I started putting stuff together, and then hit El Mirage first in 2006, and started racing. Actually raced my street bike, which was a turbo Hayabusa. So my first time out, I just actually took it in a stock Busa to get my licensing.
So you weren't running under any class? Were you running a class or just getting licensed?
That was just licensed, yeah. And once I got licensed up, I think as soon as I got licensed up, and when I kind of let it loose, I set top speed of the meet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And again, on my street bike, and they told me take my license plate off, and it said it was XS PSI, so like excess PSI because it was turbo. And I'm like, do I have to? They're like, well, you don't have to take it off. But I'm like, well, I want it on there because this is my street bike, and I want to go 200 miles an hour in the dirt with my street bike. And I did, and then I went out. So the bike, and I was building a bike specific for land speed racing for Bonneville, and so I took the motor out of my street bike and stuck it in there in the bike, and went out to Speed Week 06.
So you took it and stuck it into which bike?
So I built
built another bike.
I bought a wrecked Busa, and took the motor that was in my street bike. And a different turbo kit and everything, stuck it in that bike, and basically built the bike, put it on the dyno, took it off the dyno, put it in my truck, took it to Bonneville, and the first time that I rode it was leaving the starting line on the short course for my license, and I went 217 or something like that, and had an intercooler pipe blow off, and kind of anyway, and that I melted some pistons on that run, but I brought a whole nother bike with me. So I remember Ricky Kuzi. Yeah. So Rick, I don't know if I had helped Rick at that point, but Ricky Kuzi I knew him from Elmo. I remember he came by. So I pulled the motor, and the other bike was a turbo bike as well, but it was a complete running bike. So I pulled the motor out of that, pulled the top end off of it, was putting the top end. I mean, so I literally rebuilt it sitting on a table out in the salt. And anyway, I went back out, and we had electrical, whatever. Like, I literally took a latex glove and cut the fingers off and put over every single electrical connector so no salt got in, and still it did. So I went on a long course and went 175 or whatever, and it wouldn't do anything. Yeah. So I said, you know what? And that was like, I don't know if that was Wednesday night or no, it would have been Thursday. So we could have run Friday. I said, you know what? I'm just going to gather this up, go back home. So then I went out to Bub, a week later, and went, and all I did was blow out the connectors, took all the, and I had dielectric grease in them and everything before that, but I blew out the connectors, put it back together, but went 220, and but I was pushing a head gasket just before we made studs with ARP to make it so this stuff didn't happen. But the cool part about that, I told him I was smart enough. This is like obviously my first deal really out in the salt. But I said at the time, if you said you were going to run for a world record, which was interesting because I didn't enter for a world record, but if I said I was going to, you could turn around and come right back. So I'm like, well, that's 2 runs. Right, I don't have to go back and wait in line.
Yeah.
So I said, "Yeah, I'm running for a record, And so
that is.
So I just remember I'm on the run, and I started, and I was just cruising at the 220 something, 228 or 2 whatever, and it was my first experience of doing world record stuff where you have just a mile and kilometer instead of the multiples. Yeah. So I'm like, well, I'm going way too fast. So I'm just cruising. I said, okay, now time to go. And I remember giving it throttle. I'm like, it's not going anywhere. And actually it started going slower because of the head gasket. And then I remember looking down and just seeing my overflow bottle just bubbling and all that. And I said, oh man. So I get down the end and it pushed out all the water. And I didn't have anything with me. There was one guy sitting down there at mile 11. And actually Scott Guthrie pulled up, and I should have really pushed him to see if he had anything, but the guy at mile 11 had Gatorade. I should have put the Gatorade in the bike. It would have made a great story, but I was there by myself, right? And I was like, because you can ride your bikes at the Bub event. And I'm like, well, listen, I'm at this point 6 miles from the pits. I got to get back somehow. I've got to ride, so I might as well just go do it on the course, even though I know I have no fluid in this thing. And but I managed a 2:15, so I got a 2:18 record.
Oh wow, you got a record out of it.
Yeah, so out of my first 2 full passes on course,
what class was this?
That would have been 1350. I don't know if I guess it was probably blown fuel, MPS. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have been MPS blown fuel or gas. I can't remember, but so that was my AMA record, which ultimately came back around where 2 years later when the Bub did their 201 club, it was kind of like, oh yeah, well you did this a couple years. They retro and gave you a hat and whatever for that. But yeah, so that was my my first kind of deal into it, and got it. I mean, that felt pretty good with going 220 and it was fair, which is so that was my whole thing is that the record I was going after, I think it was 230. I think it was Dennis Clanton's. It was Motorhead's 237 to 687 or something like that. And so come the next year, getting out to El Mirage, saying, I'm like, all right, doing the same thing.
You run in the same class?
Same class with the faired bike. And
this is 07.
07. So I go, maybe actually, I don't know if I even ran yet, but I don't remember the dates. But basically, I had a friend of mine, Bob Kaus, come down from, he was a Vegas guy, but he was up in Oregon at the time. Came down and at this point, I'm in California. And I said, yeah, we're gonna, come down. You wanted to experience all this. I'm like, okay, cool. So we get the thing on the dyno, and the thing literally backfires, blows up the plenum. The turbo's junk, and all stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah, we're done. This was, and it might have been it might have been the May, the 2-day event, I think, because, I think it was Friday. And I'm like, yeah, dyno went on Friday to go out Saturday kind of a thing. Yeah. Anyway, he said,
sounds about right.
Yeah. He said, well, I'm not, I didn't come all the way down here. Just, you got all this stuff laying around. Can't you do something? And I'm like, and there was I had a turbo Hayabusa sandrail, customer's sandrail there. And I'm like, well, I guess, yeah, it's got turbo. So I called him up, said, hey, do you mind? He said, oh, go ahead. Well, this is why I'm getting into this detail. This is the naked deal. Mm-hmm. Because I put the turbo on and with the plumbing that we have, the plumbing's, I can't put the bodywork on because the plumbing, the charge tube and everything's different. And I'm like, they have some class you don't have to run bodywork on, and he's like, dude, I'm here. Let's go. Let's go out there. Whatever it takes. Let's go out there. I said,
he wants to race. I'm like, cool. Like this guy.
Yeah, Bob, And so I said, cool. And I go out and I can't remember if I got top speed of the meet on that. No, that would have been 06. So no, not top speed of the meet on that run. But, and then I actually go back out, a month later, the July event, running naked again, with the same stuff, because I only had a month. And that's when I set top speed to meet and then got in the 2 club.
Ah, cool.
I wasn't excited about it. I was actually I was kind of bummed, really,
Because you didn't like that number? Is that what what were you bummed about?
It was just that it's like I took my mojo. My whole thing was the Bonneville 200-mile-an-hour club.
Oh, gotcha.
And it's like if I only had so much mojo, it's like I just spent it, on this and but it was the great part. It was I remember Dan's like Dan Warner. He was like, just could you at least smile or something? I'm like, yeah, but I will, so. And again, the cool part about it. So I go out Speed Week, and this is a big turning point for me. So I'd met a guy in Vegas that had a turbo high boost Samuel, just bought one, and they said, "Hey, the guy you need to go see is actually in Vegas for these things." So I meet him. He's an Air Force guy, ex-Air Force guy. Badass combat controller dude. And he's into all this stuff. And I'm like, so he's like, yeah, I'm going to come out and help you. And so he came out to Elmo and helped him, whatever. Then he takes his whole family, because he was still a government employee. And he brings his whole family on their annual vacation to the Salt.
That's how we spend our vacations.
Well, and I mean, but he drives up, and this is when the gas prices, were crazy and everything. And, he brings his, his trailer. His wife drives the motor home. He brings his truck and trailer, and they come out to help me. And
that's awesome.
So we qualify, and again, on the naked stuff. And I said, and I was sleeping in their motorhome in town, and I was just started getting where I had data logging things on the bike, and so I'm like all night, I'm all excited because I qualified, and I'm looking through all the data, I'm trying to figure out all the stuff, and there was something a little funky. I couldn't figure out what was going on. It was, and ultimately it was my dash, even though I had calibrated it, it would read it'd go 1, 2, 3, 4. 6, 6 for gear. And by the time I kind of got settled down, I was in like 5th gear, going whatever, 200, whatever. And then I pay attention to the gear position, because I was like, I don't want to count gears. So I made sure that the gear counter was right. And so now I'm thinking in 6, so I'm not going to try to shift. But that's what I felt like, something was kind of funky, So anyway, I stayed up way too late, and we get out there. And we get a little rush to get out. Then we get up the top. I remember Ron Main was like, I said, I want to be on the right side, kind of like we do at Elmo. The bikes run on the right side because the car guys run on the left, so they can, they see the cones. And Ron Main's like telling him, no, you go the other way. And he's like, no, I want to go this way. And he's like, no, you go over here. You got to turn back around. So my guy Brad Thompson. He flips a U the truck and trailer, and my bike not only just falls over because it's in a stand, it's almost completely upside down inverted. And so we open the door, and there's fuel everywhere, and I'm in the gas class, so I'm thinking, there's like, do I have enough gas to make the run? Because we can't go refill it because it's sealed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And so there's that kind of whole craziness going on, and it had a fiberglass tank, and that was the other thing. It was like, did the tank get punctured because it's because it fell over? And so they still made me start on the far left, like literally my shoulder was against the mile marker, and in my head. So now things are getting amped up, and people look
tensions are rising,
tensions, whatever. And so I make a beeline. Like when I say beeline, I mean I'm almost going perpendicular to the course, because I'm like, I'm going to get straight to the right hand side. And it was one of the first years, well, at least first year I messed with it. They had a combined course, short and long on this, right?
Oh yeah.
I go across the middle and it was like 90 miles an hour, and I'm airborne, literally. It's and I'm like all over the place, and finally get it settled down, and I start accelerating again. Now again shooting all the way to the right. And I'm out there and I'm flying. I'm looking at my GPS and I'm like, man, I'm going, well, the record was record was 195, Scott Guthrie record, and they had a 205 minimum. And I forget what I had.
A 205 club minimum.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I'm like going, 216. I'm like, oh, I'm already like writing a song for the parade and everything, and I look and I'm like, why are the mile markers so close to my left? If I'm on if I'm on the right side of the court, I go, but I'm going 216. So I run the whole entire run outside the course.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And Brad, Sue Ann, and Megan and Matthew, the Thompsons, they come pick me up, and they all look like I just ran over their dog. and then like backed up, said, oh, and ran over again. Did I hit something? And and he's like, I said, what was my speed? And he says, you didn't get one. And
the clocks didn't pick it up.
and I'm like, what? I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, they said you ran outside the course. And I'm like, how did? Oh. And there was another guy that was right, like we were going like neck and neck on this stuff, and he got disqualified. So anyway, we end up turning around, rerunning this, and I was at this point. He thought I was faster than him. I thought he was faster than me, and he said, "Well, let me go and do it, and then you can follow up behind me." And I said, "You know what? No, I'll do it." So I went out and went soft. I just went 206, or I think I went 211 and anyway. I just knew if I went 206, I was over the 205. And that's all that matters. So I think I averaged 209, and then he came in and went 215 behind me. But I just got to get the hat. I can't because I already totally screwed the pooch in the that day, and then I qualified obviously later that day and came back in the morning. But it was unlike the Elmo deal. I mean, I had I had tears in my eyes. I'm not gonna tell you that anything different, but. And it was a big deal. It was realization that it was something bigger than my pro stock deal, and something that obviously I never thought as a kid I wanted to race a pro stock motorcycle, but I realized as a kid that I wanted to get the 200-mile-an-hour club deal, and the people involved, I remember Mary True came over and Guthrie kind of got me going, where he gave me. He said his own personal hat, because I guess it was his record. Aww. And that started a thing that I did as well. I mean, next year, Leslie Porterfield, got in a 2 club and took my record. So I presented her my hat, but then, but everyone else that I had worked with from then on, even though it wasn't my record they took, it was my, like I helped them build the bike, or I built the bike, or did whatever. So I always gave them a hat.
Yeah.
That was,
you came over personally.
Yeah. Part of the thing. But
it is fun to be there and impound when they get, and just be right there to give them that hat. It's definitely something.
Yeah. It's one of those
worthwhile to be over there.
Yeah. Those are smiles that you can't smack off people's faces.
Yeah. For days.
Oh yeah. And then the other thing is, I guess it was Guthrie told me I had to wear the hat for a week without taking it off.
Yeah. And then he tells you to put a shirt on.
And I did. Yeah. I did. Tell me to put a shirt on. I said, and I remember there's a video of it. I said, I'm not going to put you people through this by putting a shirt on. But I wore that hat for straight, and I don't wear hats. If I wear a hat, if you see me wearing a hat, it's a 2 club hat.
Yeah.
No, not a 2 club. It's a Bonneville, 2-mile-an-hour club hat. But I wore that for 7 days, which I thought was
that's funny. That's cool. Awesome. You literally wore it for 7 days.
Yeah,
no,
awesome. But that's to me. That's how much it meant. If that, like, that's what you do for the club, which obviously it's not. But to me, it was like. It was like a sacrifice in a way, because literally, one, I don't wear hats, but I mean, I had to go through, I mean, literally, I took it off to go to bed and then shower. Otherwise, it was like, because it just made me feel more a part of the club, which obviously at that point.
Well, and it's crazy.
Third grade was a long time before that.
It's crazy. You're this kid from New Jersey in 3rd grade thinking like, that's really amazing. And then all of a sudden, like, you're here and it's happening. And I think that happens. That your ring story reminds me of my dad he used to, he lived in New Mexico for a while, and he'd get butcher paper, and he would draw sceneries of the salt flats, like from the magazines he would see, because he loved it so much and has that just passion for it. And I think that's just, it reminded me of that when you told me that story about how you wanted to, you saw that ring.
Well, that's, this kind of by jumping ahead of a bunch of things, but when the world's fastest Indian, when Hopkins, steps on the salt and said, these are hallowed grounds with Campbell, and all these things. It's like for the first couple of years, literally, I would get like choked up just when I go off the Land's End and just like I'm on the freaking Bonneville Salt Flats. And unfortunately that changed later, and I'm trying to get back to that feeling because that kind of it kind of went away for a while, but I guess a quick thing with this whole thing. So as I set the record on, I guess it was Wednesday, and I was the only motorcyclist to be inducted that year. Mm-hmm. And I'd never been to a 2 Club meeting, or not meeting, banquet. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there, and I remember your dad. I'm pretty sure it was you. I have the video.
He was present. I think he was present at the time.
But your dad was like, "Oh, there's only one motorcycle guy. Let's just get him over with," And so Guthrie introduces me. And hands me the little glass thing, and then kind of points to the podium, and I'm like, "Oh, really? I got to say something." I'm like, "This is great." So I did a little tap dance up there, and everyone's like, "Oh, yeah, okay, great record, yeah, a little clap here and there." And so I start walking away. He's like, "Oh no, wait a minute," and he said something to the effect of, something happened to this young man that I don't think he's realized yet, and means more to you people than it means to him, or something, whatever. But he said, less than 30 days ago, he also got in the El Mirage 200 mile an hour club. And then people are like, "Whoa, hey, yeah, all right," and then people actually clapped, you know? And that was kind of when I took a hold and owned that Elmo, the El Mirage 200 mile an hour club. And I knew, obviously, there's very few, in comparison, right?
That's a hard record. I think I was
155th person or something like that, and I was like 380 for Bonneville. Yeah. But that was still to this day. It's like that response of the audience. Just, because it went from like, "Oh yeah, great, okay, he's in the club, motorcycle," to like, but you actually heard people going, "Whoa, well, all right, yeah."
Yeah. So, and you're like, did you say at the time you're the only one that has done that same year, like kind of done the 2 Club El Mirage and the?
I don't know about that part of it, but it just the.
Called it the hat trick.
The hat trick. So that was, and then I somehow got in a conversation with Scott Guthrie, and he said, "Yeah, that's a hell of an accomplishment." And I said, "Well, has anyone done that before?" He's like, "I don't know." I said, "Well, I go, can you check that out?" Since he's kind of like a land speed historian of sorts. And he said, "Well, I know no one's ever gotten to 3 clubs on a naked motorcycle." So I'm like, okay, that's an easy way out for him. But so anyway, the cool part about that was, the next year. I ended up getting into the 200 mile an hour club at Maxton. Yeah. On Bill Warner's bike, and that was the hat trick. That was the naked hat trick. Yeah. So that was that to me, and again, that was like another, to do something. There's a lot of people that break down the stuff, the records, where it's like. Like Hyundai saying the Elantra is the best car in its class, and the class is, a car made by Hyundai called Elantra, right? Yeah. So it's like, well, this is the fastest with this, and, with, this hubcap or this, it's like, come on. But I didn't think I was dissecting it that much. The fact that it was the 3 200 mile an hour clubs on naked motorcycles that, again, no one had done. So it's like another... and then that's the whole battle. It's like the record's not good enough. Yeah. We like our little firsts and our onlys we like that.
You step that up. We love that. So then you go on to get some more. I don't know many people that have as many 2 Club hats as you do. Is there many other, do you know anybody else that has as many?
No. There's, for years, I guess, I've had 7 since 2012. and I guess a car guy caught up at some point. But again, I count the organization, not the particular. Mojave would have their 200, their 225, 250, whatever the different club. It's like one club's one club, and even just recently, last October on Jim Cole's bike, we were in Arkansas, and I jumped on it and got a record at 215. But that's ECTA.
So because Bonneville 200 mile an hour club is separate from any of it. It's separate from SCTA. It's separate from US Safari. So the other ones aren't separate from it. They're part of the organization.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't even know about the ECTA at the time. At Maxton, you had to set a record. Of course, it's just a one-way deal. And I set a record this last October at Arkansas, but Texas, you go 200 and
it's just a 200.
It's just like you go 200,
What and Arkansas is what's the
ECTA?
But it's is it just called? But what's the field called? Is it? That's not Loring, right? What is it?
No, Loring's the LTA, Loring Timing Association.
Okay.
Yeah, that's up in Maine.
Okay, in Maine. And then, so in Arkansas, I've kind of researched it a little bit, but I can't remember.
And they were in Ohio for a couple years as well. Yeah.
And that's all ACTA.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And so did you run Ohio?
I never ran Ohio. They ran it just a couple years, but so it was never, the hat trick was, that was, I kind of pursued that, and Bill Warner was really gracious. I mean, I actually asked him, do you know anybody? And he had just bought the Hayabusa because he had a VMAX, Yamaha VMAX part. I just bought this drag bike, and I was helping him out with some parts and pieces and some advice, I guess. And that's why, and I just met him. I just met him that, I guess it would have been Bub in 2007. So, here a few months later, we're talking, and I said, you know anyone? And he's like, hey, you can come ride mine. And so, well, what do I need? He's like, well, if I remember, you got big feet, so maybe bring your boots or something. And, so it was, I guess, kind of like to him, it was for the help that I had given him at the time.
And is this his fast bike that he's letting you run like that?
It was
the 300 mile an hour one?
Not the 300. Okay. It was what he called the street bike. So he went 278 with this one.
Whoa.
Yeah, and but he had only he ran, I guess the two events prior ran like if it was maybe April and May, and then this was June. So he only had a few runs on the bike, and he just kept, don't go faster than me, don't go faster than me, and I'm like, well, that's up to you, because he was programming the boost controller, but and that was a Scott Guthrie record as well that I took out. It was and the funny part was the way his positioning was on the bike. So I made my checkout run at I think they wanted me to go 140, and everything was good. And then when I got on it, to make a run, it pushed me farther back, and it was the run was a total mess, but it was spinning the tire and the air shifter wasn't working. So I was foot shifting, and so I was getting more boost than you're supposed to, because it's going by, when you push the button, by shift input, not by actually changing the gear. So now I have third gear boost and second, and so I have more boost. So anyway, he programmed me to go, I think the record was 206 from Scott Guthrie, and he said, you're going to go 211. And I went 220. And he's like, how did you go 220? He wanted to know how I did that. But it was just because, it was in higher boost levels in the particular gear. But anyway, that was a really, really cool experience with all that. And I was always really grateful for, Bill letting me do that.
That's neat. You have that experience with him. And then that was in Arkansas, right? You were saying?
That was North Carolina.
Oh, that was Maxton. Okay. I went to Maxton one time. I lived in North Carolina for a while, and it was neat. Yeah. It's neat to see. I was lucky to see it one time at least before they were done. That's a long drive though to take out there from where you're at.
I just met Bill there. I mean, he came out of Florida, so I flew into Charlotte.
There you go.
And I went back another time and helped him out to, him out and ECT, did tech and stuff like that. But it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Good old Laurinburg.
Yeah. But there's lots of North Carolina guys that drive out to Bonneville. So I guess it goes both ways. So let's think about the hats that you have. So you said you have 7. So you have Elmo, you have Bonneville, I
guess in order it would have been the retro back to the Bub 201 Club.
Okay.
Then it would have been El Mirage, Bonneville, Maxton. Mm-hmm. And I think then Loring.
Oh, I think you have Texas here.
Texas, yeah. Texas has been 09, and then Loring was the 246. Mm-hmm. That was 2011. And then Mojave in 2012.
Cool.
And then 2012, I went to Australia to get in the 2 Club, and we got rained out.
Oh, shoot. That would have been cool.
Yeah, well.
An 8th. You're stuck at lucky 7, I guess.
Yeah, it all works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, it's kind of cool, but that and $3 will get you a beer someplace. It's not like.
That's right. Well, at least in your world, and in the land speed world, it gets you somewhere. At least get you a Vada boy or something. I don't know what to get you.
Maybe someone will get you a beer. I did get actually with wearing a El Mirage 200 Mile an Hour Club shirt at a Chili's in Laverne, which is right there by Pomona's where I live, and. The guy comped to me and
so
Reese
cool.
Griffiths for dinner. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Like, wow, all right, cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's awesome. It's never happened to me. But then you're kind of building bikes for people at this point.
And I just,
word gets out. The Scott goes fast.
I guess, I started going, and then, Al Lamb and Leslie Porterfield got recommended to contact me in 07. Mm-hmm. And so I had, like I said, I just set, actually, so did I do that? No, well, it was prior. They did. They contacted me like in the late spring and brought me Leslie's bike, which was, not ready to run at all, with a bunch of stuff going on. And but we ran and got in the 2 Club. And actually, they were there at Elmo when I got in the 2 Club there in July. They were running a stock bike. But anyway, we did what we could to get her bike together to run and at Bub, and that's where she crashed. Mm. And and it was kind of like and not say good, but it was like there was problems with the bike, and you kind of knew like the body work just wasn't right for her. And it was the good part again for me was like I saw these as what I thought were problems. Like, there's no way necessarily to verify them, but you just look in like theory. It's like, well, you see her butt's not against the back of the seat. There's no real tank. Like she can't pinch her knees to hold on and not press it. And so, and ultimately she got in a tank slapper and because she, the only thing really on the bike is her feet and her hands on the bars, and she can't, so basically it transferred through her as well and increased the oscillations and pitched her off at 100 and something. And
it was pretty fast. It was pretty gnarly crash.
And, so and it was the good part is knowing that like I didn't do something to make that happen. But there's a certain, I think, just in the male brain, the fact that just trying to protect the female. And it didn't really sink in then, but I've helped over the years. Valerie Thompson and Beelan Wagner, Evelyn Scholes. I mean, so there's some other females, and it's it's a different mindset. That it's not like we do anything different. I mean, we like safety is obviously a top priority with all this stuff, and you think about it, it's just like hey, these people are going 200 something miles an hour, and it doesn't take much to make stuff go sideways. But yeah, so we put stuff together and built a proper bike for Leslie the following year.
Good.
And it started the whole thing of, okay, what do you want to do? How fast you want to go? Oh, I want to do that. Okay. So I said, well, why don't you go after my record, which was whatever, the 209, the naked, the 1350, whatever it was, MBF, I think. Ultimately she did. And got in the 2 Club with that. And and then the next month at Bub, she went 232 with the fairings, and that was FIM record, and at the time that was the fastest. Actually for like 10 years or so, she was in the Guinness Book for the fastest female with a world record, and at the time she was the fastest female. Period, and then over time between Trillium and Becca over in the UK and some other people had gone faster, but they weren't world records.
Yeah.
And the fact, it just just the craziness of some of these things that how they all happened, and we with her deal, I just remember we were waiting because Cliff Gullett had crashed. She had qualified with maybe it was a 230, and then Cliff crashed. They shut everything down. So the next day, she was racing a production Honda, a CBR 1000, and she was going against Rosie Lackey. I don't know if you know Roosevelt Lackey. I don't know if he's in the 2 Club, but this little, he was 70 maybe or something, but this little tiny black dude, just as nice as can be, and I guess has a like amazing racing, history. And, but he's a perfect pilot because he's this little tiny guy. And, so he's riding this, MV Agusta, that's factory backed out of Italy. And him and Leslie are kind of going after this production stuff back and forth. And so she was riding that because she just kind of, I think after Cliff's thing, just kind of settled down before she gets back on. Cause, of course, when you're going that fast, stuff's, and the bikes are, all over the place anyway. But, so she said, I'm not going to race the Booster today. We're okay. So we're doing all the stuff with the production bike. And then it's like the end of the day, she goes, I want to run. And I had heard, and I think someone else confirmed, they're running until 6 or something. And, so we go make a run, and we come back, we pull up, because at the time you just came back, they didn't escort like they do now. We just came back and they're like, what are you guys doing here? And like, well, we just made a down run. We, qualified, and no, we're done for the day. And we're like, no, but yeah. Anyway, they said, well, listen, you got whatever it was like 7 minutes or something to get down to the other end. So, and the bike was so it was a big stroker motor and just didn't like to be run hard at all. And literally when we were in impound, I was hitting it with the spray bottle with water, and the water was bubbling, like dancing on top of the case, like you throw it on a skillet. And I said, well, what are we doing? And they said, we're going for it. And I said, all right. So we had this little deal where you stick the front wheel on the hitch, receiver hitch. And Al's, he's got his Dodge truck. I mean, I think it's topped out 116 or 117, if I remember, where it hit the limiter. And we got the tank propped up on her bike, just trying to air it out as we get down there. And I said, we got to wait as long as possible because the oil pressure was just so terrible. And this thing, and of course it's hot, so it's whatever. So, but literally, which is incorrect. But at the time, they said you had to leave the starting line before this time frame. But anyway, that wasn't the case.
They were wrong.
They were wrong. But I just said, well, then start going, but idle with your feet on the pegs. And I'm literally running next to her with the squirt thing inside under the bodywork, and ultimately, yeah, she goes to whatever, but what did Betty Birkeland say? Puts a window on one side and a door on the other side of the block or whatever. So yeah, she put a leg out of bed, as Al Lamb likes to say. And, but it did the 232 and
that got her the record.
That got her the record.
Nice.
and it got the fastest, so it was, but yeah, it was, it's Bonneville. There's always the stories like that. But but that was a good one.
Yeah. And she's so sweet and nice. Like, it couldn't happen to. I'm glad she got it. I really do like Leslie. She is nothing but kind. So.
Well, real quick, the great part. The next day, so we were going back and forth with the production, and I mean, we were doing everything like changing the direction of the tape. We're putting silicone in the heads, like the screw heads. Just thinking all this crazy stuff to pick up because it was literally fractional mile an hour between us and MV Agusta. And ultimately, come Thursday, we were ahead of them, and we were in impound, and the motor, we had to tear the whole. Basically, the bike was the front end and the swing arm and the frame of the swing arm. I mean, the whole rear was off. The motor was all hanging down, and they come by and they said, "Hey, good job. You got us. It's been a long week. We appreciate it. Blah blah blah." And we said, "Okay." And this was, it was getting dark, and they leave, and I go, "They're going to be the first ones out there in the morning." And they're like, "No, I don't think so." I remember, and they get Reese. I said, "This bike." I said, "We're gonna be the first ones on the salt tomorrow." And I remember just Reese looking at me going, "Oh man." So we put the ball back together, got it ready to run. It looked like, we just showed up, and I wish I videoed this. We're sitting there and they're driving into the sun to the start line, right? So they can't see. And I go, "Here they come," and they get there, and the look on, I mean, literally like cartoonish. They just, the life drained out of them when they saw us sitting there ready to go. And they just, as far as I remember,
gotcha.
As far as I remember, they just turned around and went back.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, they didn't even run.
It was just your competition who it was?
Yeah. But they figured, oh yeah, we're telling them we're not coming back. We'll get in and we'll sneak under there. But when they saw the bike completely disassembled.
Not very Bonneville-like, I feel like.
Yeah,
but you caught on to
Yeah,
it.
exactly. I smelled what they were stepping in.
Yeah. So, you got Leslie in and you start getting, that's the first of many, it looks like, that you start working on.
Yeah, that year. And again, that was cool. She was like basically my first Land Speed customer, and Shane San Miguel was my second. And and he ran against, what was cool. So Rick Yakuzi went out in 99 with the brand new Busa, set the production record, I think at 2:03, if I remember. And then, the Generation 2 Busa came out in 08, and Shane had that and bumped the record, became the second person to get in the 2 Club with a production motorcycle. So it was a good, and then of course they say, "Oh, that's success." That it's like, well, then hey, do mine. And so 09 was actually crazy. I think there was seven bikes out there. It was too crazy actually, but
you had 7 bikes that you were working on? Wow.
7 bikes, yeah. And I was smart enough to at least tell everyone they had to have their own crew chief, but that,
wow,
that
you
all
were
ran.
busy.
No, that was crazy. But we still, Ryan Keep got in on the one, on his naked, on the 1000, which was, a de-stroked Hayabusa, which was, Noonan's the only other person I know that has done something like that. But yeah, de-stroked at 14.6 millimeters. Not a happy motor. But other than that, it's all Busa, but it, it made it a 1000. And then, hooked up, actually that year with Jamie Williams, and 2010, we did a big push with Jamie, got him in the 2 Club, on a nitrous bike, and, we ran Cook. We were first ones were out there running Cook, and had a good time there. The salt was, super crappy, but
what year is this? 2010?
2010. Yeah. And, that was the mashed potatoes year, I call it, but so, but we got him in the last, I mean, again, all these things, I couldn't tell him, but the quick one with him is just, we had qualified the last, whatever day at World Finals would be. I don't think it's Thursday, but, because it's not a thing. But anyway, the night before the last day. And, we're like, oh man, finally we qualified, because we were running nitrous, and, it had a 6-second build time. Right. So if you get out of throttle, which was, it was super soupy, and you're almost bound to get it. But basically, if you get out of the throttle within a mile, it's a throwaway. That mile's a throwaway, because you get back in, right? So if you're going 200, that's 15 seconds to, to cover the mile. Yeah. But it takes 6 seconds for the nitrous to build back up again. And so it was just, but we finally got him in, and getting, and anyway, so he said, "Hey, did you ever get your program from Speed Week?" I said, "No, I don't think so." He said, "Well, I'll go to the trailer and I'll get our programs." I said, "Okay." He comes back and he's like, "We were not entered." And I'm like, so the guy, so he had Alan Anderson helping him. We got teched, but never took it to the registration trailer. So we were already loaded up, in impound, ready for the morning.
Oh no!
And he left the line. It was raining. It was raining on the line, but it wasn't raining down course. And it was just, again, I could tell you a half an hour of this whole story, but he qualifies actually at a faster speed than he did, and then, come the morning, it was, he ran. It was one of those crazy, because I heard you talking to, I think it was Shane, or maybe it's your brother, Dallas, about it. But he was running Ryan Ostergaard, was they were running like, they're basically competing for the hat, right? And so Jamie ran, it was like one of the last ones to run. Ryan was like the first one to run. And I heard, Ryan stuff, and he got the record, right? So he got in the club. And they said, what did he run? It's like, well, I don't know what his average. He was just speeds. So anyway, Jamie runs. I hear his speeds, and I'm like, well, he didn't, And Ryan had a big stroker motor, so he typically went faster in the last mile. Well, anyway, what it comes down to, I remember the details, but he ran off like something happened, and so it matched up enough where Jamie beat him by 1/10 of a mile an hour. To actually get his hat,
Yes.
But I was like, I picked
you
up.
didn't think it was going to happen.
But Jamie had something blowing oil, and like he was totally covered in oil, couldn't stop. It was raining, and he was so far down the course.
Wow.
It took us like a half an hour to get back to the pits, and literally. So I know the whole, and it was funny because Jamie starts off. He's like, hey, it is what it is. We did it. We did our best this year in this racing. And I'm already thinking, I'm like, well, you didn't get it. I already know you. And then by the time, a half an hour later, by the time we get back, he's like, man, it would really be nice if we got it, with all this work we put in, and we pull up, and I didn't even go to impound, like
you guys just assumed
unconsciously.
You didn't get it. Yeah.
We didn't go, and we pulled next to the impound, and Ryan jumps up over the ropes, and he's like, "What did you run?" He's like, "Well, yeah." He's like, "You got us." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "No, your math must be wrong or something." But anyway, so it was like this in this grand fashion that in the last race of and no, matter of fact, when I said it rained when he left, it rained. The whole it was underwater. And they moved the starting line. We didn't run till 11 o'clock, and they moved the start a mile and a half.
Was this a USFRA meet?
This was World Finals.
It was World Finals.
2010.
Okay, yeah.
But anyway, so it was like, it was it's so crazy how all this stuff ends up even happening, But anyway, but it was, but that was that was Jamie, and then and John Dobbs. Actually, John bought my bike, the one I built and got the 2 Club with. John Dobbs bought that. He got in the club in 2009, and I said Jamie was 2010, and then Bob Clark.
So Jamie and Ryan Keep are both running that's who you're talking about when you're saying Ryan, they were competing for the same
No,
one?
Ryan Ostergaard was
Ryan
another
Ostergaard.
guy.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's right. Okay,
Yeah.
I see. That I was like kind of confused for that. Okay. So then you got Ryan Keep, and then you got Jamie Williams.
Yeah.
And then that's a pretty crazy story, just even the raining and moving the track, and it was, and then you got Al Lamb that you get in.
Yeah, help him. We helped. Yeah, he originally he had Mike Lozano do the motor, but we did the what he calls the little bike, and we did that. So helped him do that. There's and there's a few people that again helped throughout the little things, but that was kind of the fun part of it is watching these people live like I did.
Yeah,
right? And that's the thing is like it was something that meant a lot to me, and to be able to satisfy someone else's
dreams,
goals,
help them fill their dreams.
Exactly.
So you're kind of like coaching and consulting if you're not helping build engines too, right? Like you're kind of doing a lot of the stuff.
I try. I mean, I try to help out the people, and I guess I got a little more confident in what I saw. Like, like I mentioned with Leslie's, the way the bodywork was and all that. I didn't think that was right, and found out I was right about that. But yeah, I kind of got more into the deal, and and then when I screwed up on my 2 Club deal with my head wasn't there, right? So I didn't sleep. I got too excited. I was absolutely focused on the fact that I was going 216 and my record was 205, and I wasn't doing my job. Yeah, and that was a huge. Besides, the Thompsons looked like I ran over their dog, but it was, but I mean, thinking about it, really, it was like because I was Scott McLeod, we were going, neck to neck on going after the record. I could have thrown away this whole deal from 3rd grade, just because I didn't have my shit together, and that was something that I took with me from that point, and it was some skills that I had that I just really didn't utilize. And I got into, kind of visualizing these deals. And like the runs, and doing the bike. So, basically it comes down to is your system one thinking, your unconscious stuff has to be really handling a lot of what's going on. So consciously you can make decisions and adjustments and things on the bike. And, and that's where, so that was, '08 and then 2010 at Cook. I mean, here's a prime example. I say, I think it was the coolest thing ever. And I also think, what kind of bonehead am I? But, this again, the salt was the total crap, and I'm coming back for return record going 2:30 whatever it was, and tank slapper after tank slapper, and I get in time mile, and it's like I'm not sure I'm going to be on this. I mean, it's like I need a belt buckle from the rodeo, and so and the reason I'm having tank slappers is because I'm spinning the tire. So the tire spinning, which is putting weight on the front end, which then starting a thing. So typically to get out of a tank slapper, you accelerate through it. Well, the reason I'm in a tank slapper is because I can't accelerate.
That doesn't seem like fun.
No. So I remember entering the time mile, and I'm seriously, like, if you have a tank slapper as a motorcycle, like a couple times in your existence on the street and whatever, that's like a big thing. I mean, I literally had like 5 lifetimes worth of tank slappers on the 5 miles preceding the time mile. And I just, it was about ready to pitch me off. And what I ended up doing was slowly raising up, because I was like, I don't know, I think I was only in the teens or maybe 218 or something like that, and slowly raised up. And then I actually stood up like a jockey on a horse, like after they run,
Yeah.
So I'm like standing up, and then, I sit back down and I just, coast through. I'm like, it was I blew it, right? It's a return run. So I knew it wasn't going to happen. And Discovery Channel was doing the show on Rocky, because this is when he set the record. And they were interviewing me. And I remember, and Mike did this twice, Cook did this twice to me. But they're in the middle of the interview, he comes pulling up and walks right up, like, but he's like, hey, what's this? I heard you were hot dogging it in the mile. And I'm like, and this was like an hour and a half or something later. I'm like, hot dog in the mile? What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, you were like standing up doing some tricks or something. and I just, so the proud moment was that I had never once ever considered doing what I did to get out of a tank slapper, which basically by me raising up, I'm taking the weight off that front wheel. Because that's why the tank slapper is happening, because the weight's been applied to the front wheel. So I'm taking the weight off that front wheel with my body because I can't accelerate through it. So I'm like, wow, that was pretty cool that I came up with that without actually having that as a plan.
But it was like natural.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Like you're I didn't even really think about how it was working.
And not even thinking, not saying, hey, this is in my repertoire, I'm going to bring it out. It's like never even considered it. But the fact that I had the wherewithal to process and come up with that. But then the part where I thought I was an idiot was that, like, it happened and just I put it to the side. Like I didn't even know what he was talking about. Like oh yeah, that's right. I did stand up and going 200 miles an hour in the mile or whatever. But but anyway, that caught me with the other people that I had helped out. Building stuff and otherwise, where, getting more at being conscious, and like Beelin Wagner, I remember her asking me like, how fast am I going to go, Scott? And I'm like, you're telling me.
Yeah.
I'm not,
That's right.
And not a great example, but I said to her, you come off the track and your eyes are all over the place and you can't remember your name. I said, you're just going to go slower. Tell some of the people what I do to help out, for me, to kind of get in tune with the bike and understand, because the more, the more you can have happen unconsciously, right? Your subconscious taken care of, the more that you can, because I've had guys where they had an air shifter on the bike and the bike didn't shift, right? You can shift with your foot.
Yeah.
but the shifter, remember one guy, they tied up the safety wire, the shifter to the kickstand, because you had the safety wire to kickstand, and they did it all at one time. Someone messed up, but anyway, but it didn't shift. And it's like, okay, well, they aborted the run. And I'm like, yeah, but you could have shifted with your foot. I mean, it's like, oh, yeah, I guess I know. Think about it. It's like,
it's a lot to think about, though, when you're going fast.
But that's the whole thing. Yeah. It's like you minimize what you have to think about.
That's right. Yeah.
But
yeah, I get it.
So it's been fun using that with people too, and getting in, getting to understand a little bit more how the brain works and how they can benefit themselves, by practicing certain things and thinking and knowing how. The biggest thing too is a lot of people don't understand how the brain reacts to certain situations. Knowing that, you can protect,
Yeah.
and have people mess. I had when I ran it about at Loring, I ran my checkout pass with the fairings on the guy's bike, took the bodywork off, and then the chief starter comes over to me and goes, he's like, Scott, he's like, you're not a naked bike rider, right? Because I'm like a big dude, but I'm like, people just don't understand, what that does, unconsciously to somebody. Because basically, I'm about ready to go 200 miles an hour,
right?
And here's somebody telling you, especially someone that, again, of authority, right?
Right.
Telling you, you can't do this,
Yeah. And even though it's something light, it does. Yeah, at some level, it's messing with your head.
But the part, being able to identify that actually does mess with you and be able to brush it off.
There you go.
That's a big thing, and that's where I was helping. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I get it. That's good.
So it's good. I enjoy doing that with people too. Because there's a lot and it makes them obviously a better and safer.
For sure.
Safer rider.
Well, especially on a motorcycle. I imagine those things have to be much, I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter what you're driving, or what you're riding or driving. But motorcycle, there just seems like
some are,
risk reward is a lot.
Well, it's just like being in a roadster as opposed to, another type of vehicle. Obviously roadsters have their own type of history.
Just like hang on tight.
Right. But that's another thing that's, interesting, even between motorcycles, where the Hayabusa at, roughly in the 170 range, which is typically what a stock one would do on the salt, they have a weave to them. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of people don't have a chance to experience that, and I think it's more pronounced on a natural surface as opposed to, being on pavement or something like that. But if you actually hang on, which is, like you grab the bars, like, holy crap, this thing's,
oh yeah,
it just makes it worse. And that's why, granted, there's more Hayabusas out there than there are, ZX14s or something like that in the same class. But disproportionately, there's more Hayabusas crashing, because of this, because people aren't, aware and then how to respond. Just because
there's more of them, you think? Or?
No, just because of the nuances of the bike and the natural reaction is for, if the thing's weaving, is you want to grab the handlebars and hold on for dear life. And when you do that, it makes things worse and could, lead to a crash. So it's like you have to know to be able to do something that's counterintuitive, to
just
survival.
Like you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you know how to, how to deal with it, it's obviously, makes life a lot better.
Yeah. I like that. I like that mental part of it, because the brain is super interesting when you start to think about what that does and how it plays into it.
Well, that's
even ego could start to play into it and all that kind of stuff.
And I've, in 2010, I also realized, I'm like, I'm way too comfortable riding in these conditions, because I call them mashed potatoes, because they were covered. You're totally covered with the salt.
Oh yeah,
it's all over you.
Yeah, gnarly.
And and it's I think from what I know with like Bill Warner's situation and Ralph and a couple other people, I think if they if they survived, they would have said, I knew better. I shouldn't have done this. I should, and I know Bill specifically had some huge, like his life was going to change if he went 300 in a mile. Totally, and it was like, and this was the last race of the year, it's just like there was so many pressures for him to do it, and I, again, I'm sure we all have, but I would actually saying exactly that with the ego a couple years ago. So Tim Partridge was a friend of mine, racer, did a lot with USFRA, and he crashed and passed away in Mojave in 2018. And so in 2020, I think it was on Jim Cole's bike, I had some of his ashes his sister gave me. And he had ridden our bike we called the BMF, Bob Clark's bike, and he wanted to go 200. He'd gone 190s and stuff on his BMW, but wanted to go 200. And so we put him on the naked bike, and he got some 190s out of it, and there was some problems with stuff. But so he never went 200. So I wanted to take him on a ride going 200, and I remember I'm sitting on the starting line, and just someone I had no idea who they were, or whatever. But a spectator goes, "Oh yeah, hey, this guy, he builds all these bike. Watch him, he's going to go real fast." And I'm just there, I want to take him go 200, but. What I liked was the fact that I was able to go, I don't care what that guy thinks.
Yeah. There you go.
I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And, but there's always that part of you that wants to be like, yeah, I'll show this guy. Yeah, this guy's right. On how, that he,
for sure.
And end up doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And that actually, on that run, because I'm like a monkey humping a football on Jim's bike, it's just like, it's awful.
That's funny.
And my leathers are getting filled. Like I can't get under. I can't. I'm all in a terrible position.
Yeah.
All crushed, and the air is going under my leathers, behind my neck, and filling me up like the Michelin Man, trying to pull me off the bike and everything. And so it was I went like 170 miles an hour, but. I said, okay, that was my kind of checkout run. And we went right back again, and they taped me all up, bunch of duct tape. And, everything has a story. But the thing about that, so he gave me, I gave my phone to put a speed app on it. Because it's just, because I wanted to kind of, know what was going on. And so we go out there, and again, it's not good. And so I'm looking, and I'm going, every once in a while I look, I'm like 107. So I got my phone duct taped to the handlebars, and I'm like 107. I go, man, this is a hard 170 something miles an hour, 178 or whatever it was. And every time I gave it throttle, it just took me hard right towards the freeway. And so I pull the bike all the way to the left. I get back on it, hard right. And I'm like, and look back, it's still 100. I'm like, well, this is as fast as it's going to go. And I have some more ashes to Tim's.
Yeah.
I'm like, because I just in case, but I said, I'm going to let Tim go, release him. So I said, let me just get a good head of steam, get all the way to the left, go as fast as I feel, because it's squirrely. It's
tight,
just, yeah. And so I give some throttle, it goes far, right. And, I release the ashes. I look, and it was 170. I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. I was kind of disappointed. And so I'm waiting for them to come pick me up. And unfortunately, with getting older, I can't see worth a damn anymore. But I'm looking at the phone, and I'm like, "What the hell does that say?" I'm like, "Oh, that says knots." So
funny.
So the short of it, which is a little late now, but anyway, is that he got 200. So
yeah, that's awesome.
And the crazy part again is stuck in my head that he had to go, like I had to release his ashes at 200. Like why can't I just take him 200 and release his ashes? But I had to release his.
He went 200 no matter what.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was like that wasn't an option. He had to be released at 200. So anyway, but that was that's
a cool story.
But to be able to process that stuff and know and
well, and it's kind of this the same, I don't know, two sides of the same coin. It's kind of the same thing that pushes you and the same thing that can maybe be your demise. So I think that's, you just got to balance it.
Yeah. Well, again, it's being cognizant of what is happening and like what your brain is doing and how it's processing the information is huge. The big thing is like people wish people luck, and we accept that as being a good thing, except our unconscious mind does not. It's like, why do I need luck? Why do I need luck? So, I don't wish people luck anymore. I wish them success and stuff like that. Unless you don't want them to have luck, and then you go, hey, good luck, have all the luck.
So if Scott wishes you good luck, you know what he really means. Well, that we're coming kind of to where your current projects are at, like what you're doing, and maybe some things that you are looking to do in the future. And what are some of those things? Are you working on anything currently that you're trying to get into?
No, well, I've Jim Cole was the only person the last couple of years I've done some stuff for, and again we ran Arkansas with his stuff, and he took my the fastest FIM record in last year, 2021. I told him, I said, listen, I've had this thing for 11 years. If you don't do it now, then it's going to be 12. And I'm going to have to say I've had it for a dozen years, which, having it for more than a decade sounds way better. So you got to take it. But otherwise, with Jamie Williams, we have the snowmobile, the sled, turbo Hayabusa powered. That's going to Bolivia. He has a liner, Jim True's old liner. We're taking that. So that's actually a 4-wheeled vehicle. Mm-hmm. And then I have what now I just without much creativity called the Bolivia bike, but it's a purpose-built naked bike to take Bolivia for my happy ass.
So this is for you. You're planning on going to Bolivia. When is this?
So I think we just got bumped with Mike Akatif. I think to August now.
This 2023.
2023.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's soon.
Yeah. Well, we've been trying to go in between the president, getting run off and COVID and all this kind of crazy stuff down there. So yeah, it's been crazy because I know, Mike wants to get kind of, every time I think they go out to the Salties, okay, this is the last time, and he's been saying that for, at least I know for a dozen years now, but yeah, so that's, to get Jamie, so he's got Bob Worth, that kind of tweaked Jim True's car a little bit, and it's got a motor in there. So NA motor trying to go 300 with that.
They're trying. Who's trying to go 300?
Jamie.
Oh,
Jamie.
in the sled.
In that Jim True's old liner.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the liner.
So it went like 260. It's got a FIA like a 260 something record with a ZX10 with 1,000 cc, and so this is a bigger Busa. And then the sled, we have a couple 190 something, 196 records. So the fastest ever is 203. So Jamie wants to be the fastest ever. So we would. The thing, it just between rough tracks and beating stuff up. I mean, we were having problems like with they call it the carriage, I guess, but the part that drives, with the. So anyway, so we've had that kind of sled mechanical issues and bending stuff and whatever. But he wants to do that. We might take his NA bike that he's got a bunch of records. The one that he got in the 2 Club with. And then like I said, there's the Bolivia bike. I got to come up with something better than that.
Think of something.
But it's all steel. So and the great part about that is that it's I could do what I want to do with a stock Busa, or not stock, but a modified framed Busa. But the fact that I'm going down with Jamie and I'm like, if we're going to Bolivia, I should really build something proper. And I've been working with Rex Sabota and Tom Birkeland with Bonnie's with that Streamliner sidecar for a few years, and talking to them about chassis stuff, and then ultimately they're like, let's do this,
Nice.
So I called Tom the Land Speed Whisperer. Yeah. So having Tom involved, then Rex did the fabrication, and the three of us kind of sticking our heads together, and we did something really different.
Yeah.
It's that's all I can say right now. I mean, it's just and it's all theory, but Tom's Tom. I mean,
it's pretty good theories.
And so it's not like, basically there's 2 things when people see the bike. Either nothing, so there's 3. I'm sorry. Either there's nothing, or there's people going, what? But so they really don't say anything, and then there's the other people that go, what the hell is that thing, right?
Yeah.
So which is cool, I think, in a way. But so we're, and I've been so busy with moving and building the house and all this stuff. So it's like we built this a few years ago, and I'll get some runs on it before we stick it in a container. But I'm not sure what stretch of highway or dry lake bed or something somewhere. Because we'll probably have to stick it in a container in March, maybe April at the latest.
Yeah. So and then you're working with Tom on this, is that right? And Rex?
Yeah. The Tom, well, like I said, the three of us, designed it, and
did you have the bike already, or was
no, this is
just all new?
I have pictures of me at Rex's house, like kneeling on the floor with a milk crate on my chest.
Wow.
In a position, and he's taking pictures.
Wow.
And we built the bike around me.
Yeah.
That's
funny.
Yeah. No, so it's and it's amazing to, be able to work with, just when they approached me to build the engine and stuff for the Streamliner, I was just like, holy crap, this is,
yeah.
This is almost better than setting a record, just to be involved with those guys. And, and I knew what I knew, which was enough for me to respond that and act that way. But the more time I spent with them, it's just
incredible, huh?
Yeah. And they're both this, I think, very similar to me, where, they just let their actions speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, amazing guys, and honored that they let me work on the projects and the fact that they,
mm-hmm.
want to help me do what I want to do, and be a fast naked guy,
Yeah.
So.
And so the Bolivia bike is the naked bike.
Is the naked bike, yeah. So a purpose-built naked bike, and I don't know. I probably don't have time to go do any body work on it or anything. Again, I just want to go fast.
Yeah. So what's the record on that? What are you trying to do?
Well, the record would be, I guess I'd be running against my record.
Oh,
my
okay.
my world record I've had since 2010, which is nothing, which is 2:10. But the fastest ever, yes. I think currently, I think Shane Stubbs it's like 264, something like that. So he's like, as far as naked bikes goes, he's 264. Bill Warner's 250, I think 254. Steve Neekum is 248, and then I'm 246.
Nice.
So
is this the one that's going to get you're trying to get into the Guinness Book of World Records?
Yeah, that'd be the icing on the cake.
Great.
Again, the record. I guess I'd have to get a record unless we flew Guinness people out there or something. But but I'd have to get a record, a world record, for them to acknowledge that. But as again, it gets back to that youth. Thumbing through that every year it comes out. We wore out the pages in that thing, and just to be able to get in there would be
amazing.
That'd be the whole thing.
I love it. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to add, or is there any? We leave any? I'm sure we left a lot out, but
yeah, of course, there's always everything. But no, I think lately, I guess the one person to make sure I think is Mark Gordon, who let me. I actually Bill Warner went his 311, and then I don't know if I was one vehicle after him, and then I ran the 246, but it was on Mark Gordon's bike,
Yeah.
And the cool part about that one too was that he had only gone 229, went 229, but had a mechanical issue that kind of spooked him a little bit, and he never went that fast again. And then I go to 246, and then he's like, wow, all right. And then he gets on the bike and he ended up going 230 naked. So he went faster naked than he did with bodywork. And it was cool just because he was like, I think he just saw the capability of the bike and saw what could be done. And, but recently, I guess the other thing too that's been great is Don Haas. He's a great guy out of Connecticut who built a compound turbo Hayabusa. And it has a fairing, but the fairing's not really worked for him. So he's been running it naked. And
what is compound turbo? What is?
So you see it in the diesel world. So this bike is actually pretty well known because it made its way through the automotive forums and things like that, because people are like, holy crap, look at this thing. So there's two turbos. Okay. Uh-huh. And so it's not a twin turbo. So one turbo feeds another turbo.
Okay.
And so basically a big turbo feeds a little turbo. This basically, Don made this thing about as complex as you could. It's just, people see this thing, they're like, what the hell? Holy crap. And it's really a work of art. And Don has some back problems. He changed up a bunch of stuff, and once, called me, and, he's got a couple of my products, and I've helped him with some, supplies, wiring and things like that. And he said, hey, you want to ride this thing for me? And obviously, I'm not a first choice for naked deal, but he's he's a little bigger guy, and he built it for him, and I fit on it like perfect. And I went out last year, made one run, set a record, 232, just making as little power as we could. But anyway, but then I went out this past year, and we finally got some stuff sorted, and still, I guess, set another record in the process. But that's our goal was to go stupid fast. But at least we figured out what's going on. But so Don's helped me, and legitimately I could at Loring satisfy really what I want to do, be the fastest naked guy, except for the world record. I wouldn't be able to get that, But it's been good to get that seat time, and the fact that we did have a lot of problems, shifting issues and all these little things, and for me to be able to get that practice, to be able to make adjustments, on the fly, and also be able to analyze what's happening, and search for a solution, again, real time, and so it's the record happened just because it happened, but I think the biggest thing is I measure everything now as to how did I perform. Like, forget the bike, but what am I proud of what I did during that run, as far as, more so mentally. But anyway, Don's been super helpful, getting me down, down the track and getting some laps in, and basically once we get to a point where the bike goes as fast as he wants to go, then he'll take the chance to get on there and be laid up for a week or two, with his bad back. But that's that's pretty much what we're doing. We're trying to get Jamie's goals in Bolivia, and trying to get mine as well. And it's a very, I'm glad we went. In 2017, we learned a lot just by being there. And I end up helping Al Lamb, which wasn't the intention. We were just kind of, on a surveying, kind of what's going on, what it is about. So when we go there, we have a better handle on it. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
That's awesome. I am excited to see what happens in Bolivia for you. I wish you success there.
I certainly appreciate that, and I wish you success right back at you. This is an awesome platform and podcast that you're doing for and we're getting this stuff documented.
Yes, thank you.
That's a huge thing to keep the memories and also the history of land speed racing alive. And as long as we have a place to race.
That's right. And
right.
We need success with Save the Salt. And you can go to SaveTheSalt.org. They need your help more than ever. Donate money, buy a shirt. The end goal for Save the Salt is to get the 10-year pumping project started. Currently, there is an estimated 206 million tons of salt byproduct on the south side of I-80. The plan is to pump 1 million tons of salt per year from the south side of I-80 to the north side of I-80, where the salt flats is. In order to get this accomplished, we need help from the state government, federal government, Save the Salt, and the mine. The federal government is holding up this process, so please let Congressman Chris Stewart and your federal congressman know you would like them to support the Salt Restoration Project. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it, share it, and consider giving it a review and rating. Please go and follow me on Instagram and Facebook pages under Land Speed Legends. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to Land Speed Legends. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, keep up with the show on Facebook and Instagram under Land Speed Legends. Until next time.